I'm Marcus, Sanshitsi, and I've spent most of my adult life trying to be the glue that holds my family together. Maybe that's why I never said no. I owned a landscaping company that had grown steadily over the years, enough to give my daughter Emma and me a comfortable life with room for the extras that made childhood magical. Emma had just turned 9, and she'd been planning her birthday since January. Not just planning, obsessing. She wanted a garden party with fairy lights woven through tree branches, a flower crown station, live butterflies, and a 3-tier cake shaped like a cottage. Every week she'd show me new drawings, ask if we could really make the butterfly release happen, wonder out loud if her friends would think it was too babyish. I promised her we'd make it perfect. I hired a company specializing in outdoor events. They brought vintage furniture, set up craft stations, and arranged for a local florist to teach the kids how to make bouquets. The cake alone cost $400 white fondant, with edible flowers cascading down 3 tiers. Emma's name was supposed to be written in lavender icing across the top. The morning arrived with Emma waking before sunrise. She appeared in my doorway wearing her nightgown, eyes bright, despite the early hour. "Dad, is it really today?" I pulled her onto the bed. "It's really today, sweetheart. Happy birthday." By noon, our backyard had transformed into something from a storybook. My sister helped string lights between oak trees. My best friend positioned speakers for the playlist Emma had spent weeks creating. Guests began arriving, and Emma floated between them in her white eyelet dress, genuinely radiant. For 3 hours, everything felt exactly right. Then I went inside to get the cake. I lifted the lid in the kitchen and felt my stomach drop. Across the top tier, in bright pink letters, "Happy 6th birthday, Tyler." Tyler was my nephew, my brother, Derek's son. His birthday wasn't for 2 more weeks. I stood staring at the wrong name, the wrong age, trying to make the pieces fit together in some way that made sense. My mother walked in carrying napkins, saw me frozen at the counter. "Oh, good. You found it," she said brightly. I turned slowly. "Mom, why does Emma's cake say Tyler's name?" She looked at me like I'd asked why the sun rises. "We combined the celebrations. Honey, Derek's been struggling financially, and it seemed wasteful to have 2 big parties so close together. This way, everyone celebrates together and nobody feels left out." The words hit me like cold water. "You what?" Before she could respond, Derek appeared with Tyler on his hip. "Hey, thanks for hosting. Man, this setup must have cost a fortune. Good thing we're all sharing it." "Right." He laughed like he'd made a clever joke. I looked down at the cake, at the name that wasn't my daughter's, at the 6 candles when Emma was turning 9. "Where's Emma's cake?" My mother sighed impatiently. "This is her cake. It's everybody's cake. Don't make this difficult, Marcus." I carried the cake outside because 30 kids were waiting, faces eager and expectant. Emma saw me coming and ran over, her flower crown slightly crooked from playing. "Is it time?" "Dad," I set the cake on the table. She looked at it. Her smile vanished so completely it was like watching a light die. "That's not my name," she whispered. "And I'm not 6. He crouched beside her, heart hammering. "I know, baby. There was a mix-up. We'll fix it." "Okay." But I could see understanding dawning in her eyes, not confusion anymore, but something worse. The realization that maybe she didn't matter the way she thought she did. That her special day could be given away without anyone asking her permission. Everyone sang happy birthday. Emma stood silent, not blowing out candles. When the song ended, she carefully removed her flower crown and handed it to me like she was surrendering something precious. Then she walked into the house without a word. I found her later in her room, still in her party dress, sitting on the floor staring at nothing. I sat down beside her, and she leaned against me without speaking. We stayed like that until the sounds of the party faded outside. That night, after guests left and vendors packed up, I sat at the kitchen table. My phone kept buzzing messages from family about what a great party it was, how smart Mom had been to combine everything, how much money we'd saved. Derek sent a laughing emoji. Tyler loved his surprise party lol. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not a document this time, but a simple list in my phone's notes app. Every slight, every dismissal, every time they'd made Emma or me feel secondary. The list grew longer than I expected. Around midnight, Emma appeared in the doorway in pajamas. Dad, I closed the laptop. Yeah, sweetheart. She climbed into my lap even though she was getting too big for it. Next year, can we just have cake at home? Just us? I wrapped my arms around her. Yeah, we can do that. After tucking her back in bed, I returned to the kitchen. I picked up my phone and did something I'd never done before. I left the family group chat. No announcement. No explanation. Just left. Then I turned off my phone and sat in the dark, feeling something fundamental shift inside me that I couldn't name yet but knew would change everything. The calls started at dawn. My phone lit up relentlessly, 17 missed calls before I finally powered it on. My father's voicemail preview showed enough words like unacceptable and disrespectful that I didn't need to listen. Derek sent a string of texts calling me selfish, immature, overdramatic. You embarrassed mom in front of everyone. Tyler was confused about why you left early. Way to make everything about you. I deleted them without responding. Emma came downstairs for breakfast quieter than usual, pushing cereal around her bowl. Are you mad at Grandma? No? Sweetheart, I'm disappointed in the choices she made. Emma nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. And maybe she did. She was 9. But she'd always been perceptive about adult emotions. Over the next week, I ignored every contact attempt. My mother appeared at my house twice. The first time I didn't answer the door. The second time I opened it but stood in the doorway, not inviting her in. We need to talk about this, she said, holding a container of cookies like a peace offering. There's nothing to discuss. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Her face shifted from pleading to defensive. You're punishing the entire family because of one simple mistake. A mistake is accidentally writing the wrong name. What you did was intentional. You planned it, ordered it, and never thought to ask me first. I closed the door gently but firmly. My father called that evening. Unlike my mother's wounded tone, he went straight to anger. You're acting like a child. Family means compromise. It means not throwing tantrums when things don't go exactly your way. Family also means respecting your granddaughter enough to let her have one day that's actually about her. Apparently that was too much to ask. Don't lecture me about family, he snapped. I've been doing this a lot longer than you. You need to think about what's best for Emma. And that's having her whole family around, not whatever this isolation is. I hung up. Emma was at the top of the stairs, listening. Dad, are we in trouble? No, baby. We're just done letting people make us feel small. I poured myself into work with renewed focus. My landscaping company had been steady for years, but I'd always played it conservative, never pushing for the bigger contracts, the commercial projects, the jobs that required real risk. Now, I started bidding on work I'd previously passed over: a shopping center renovation, a corporate campus redesign, projects requiring twice the crew and 4 times the equipment investment. I won 3 major contracts in 2 weeks. Suddenly, I was managing 15 employees instead of 5, working long days, but coming home energized rather than drained. Money started flowing faster than I'd seen before. I opened a separate account exclusively for Emma's college fund. Emma noticed the change. You're working a lot, she said one night as I tucked her in. I am. But I realized something important: I was settling for less than what we deserve. Not just with family, but with everything. She thought about that. I like it when you're happy. Dad, you smile more now. That observation hit harder than any angry message from my family ever could. 2 months after the party, Derek called from an unlisted number. I answered without thinking. Hey, listen, he said, voice uncertain. I know things have been weird, but Tyler keeps asking about Emma. Can they do a play date? No. Come on. Marcus. They're cousins. You can't keep them apart forever over this. I'm not keeping anyone apart. You and Mom decided to prioritize your convenience over my daughter's feelings. Now you're living with the consequences. I ended the call. That weekend, Emma and I went to a pottery painting studio. Just the two of us. No elaborate production. No guest list. We spent 2 hours decorating mug. Mine came out lopsided. Hers looked professional. This is nice, she said quietly. Just us doing something simple. Yeah. It really is. For the first time in years, I wasn't organizing around other people's schedules or expectations. I was simply being Emma's father. And that was enough. The real breaking point came via email from my mother, a long message about how my behavior was tearing the family apart. She described cousins asking why we weren't at gatherings, my grandmother feeling hurt, extended relatives choosing sides. You're destroying this family. Is your pride really worth all this pain? I read it twice, then typed a single sentence. My daughter's dignity is worth everything. I hit send and blocked her email address. That night I made a decision. This wasn't just about avoiding them anymore. This was about building something so good that their absence became irrelevant, not because I wanted revenge, but because Emma deserved to know her worth was never negotiable. I started planning something that would change everything. 3 months after Emma's ruined birthday, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the other end belonged to Carol Martinez, project manager for the city's parks department. Mr. Shin, we're renovating Riverside Park and need a landscaping contractor who can handle scope and timeline. Your name came up in our selection committee. Are you interested in bidding? This wasn't just another job. Riverside Park was the centerpiece of our town, 15 acres of public space, used for everything from farmers markets to summer concerts. Whoever renovated it would have their work seen by thousands of people weekly. I submitted a bid that was competitive but realistic. When Carol called back a week later to say I'd won the contract, I sat in my truck for 10 minutes just processing it. This was the kind of project that transformed a small business into a recognized company. I hired 8 new people and bought equipment I'd been putting off: commercial mowers, a second truck, professional design software. The investment was significant, but for the first time I wasn't second-guessing myself. Emma noticed the changes immediately. You're busy now, but you seem lighter, she said one evening over dinner. I feel lighter, I admitted. I realized I'd been making myself smaller for a long time. Smaller jobs, smaller risks, smaller everything. I'm done with that. She speared a piece of broccoli thoughtfully. Is that why we don't see Grandma and Grandpa anymore? Because they made you feel small. The question was so direct it took me a moment to answer. They made both of us feel small. Sweetheart. Like we didn't matter as much as other people. I decided we deserve better than that. Okay, she said simply, and went back to her dinner. But I could see her processing it, filing it away. The park renovation took 8 weeks of intensive work. I was on site daily, managing 3 crews, solving problems, adjusting plans when unexpected issues arose. Carol stopped by regularly to check progress. You're ahead of schedule, she observed one afternoon. And your crew actually seems to enjoy being here. That's unusual. I pay fair wages and don't treat them like machines. Turns out that works. She smiled. Noble concept. Listen, I'm on the committee for the Community Builder Awards. You should apply. What you're doing here, the quality, the efficiency, with the way you've engaged with the community, that's exactly what we want to recognize. I'd never considered awards or recognition, but driving home that evening, I understood why it mattered. Being visible meant being undismissible. Being recognized meant having a platform, and having a platform meant I could set boundaries that people had to respect. I submitted the application that night. 2 weeks later, an email arrived. I was a finalist. The ceremony was in December. Formal attire. Winners announced live and featured in the local newspaper. I bought a new suit and told Emma we were going to something special. Meanwhile, My family's contact attempts had dwindled to occasional texts from my mother. Thinking of you messages that went unanswered. Radio silence from Derek and my father. I assumed they'd accepted the new reality. I was wrong. In late October, my Aunt Linda called my mother's younger sister. We'd always been cordial but distant. Marcus, I know this isn't my place, but your mother is struggling. She's lost weight. Can't sleep. Your father won't discuss it. Derek's pretending everything's fine. Someone needs to bridge this gap. Then someone needs to apologize properly. I said evenly. Long pause. She thinks she has. In her way. Showing up with cookies and acting like nothing happened isn't an apology. Neither is sending emails about how I'm hurting everyone. A real apology acknowledges specific harm and commits to change. I haven't heard that. Maybe she doesn't know how. Linda said softly. Maybe you need to be the bigger person here. I laughed without humor. I've been the bigger person for 9 years. Linda. I've swallowed my feelings. Made excuses for their behavior. Prioritized their comfort over my daughter's dignity. Being the bigger person is what got us here. Now I'm just being a father. After hanging up, I found Emma standing in the hallway. Was that about Grandma? I nodded. She's having a hard time with us not being around. Emma sat beside me on the couch. Do you think we'll ever see them again? That depends on whether they're willing to change their behavior. Not just feel bad about the consequences. She leaned against my shoulder. I miss them sometimes. But I don't miss feeling like I don't count. That sentence crystallized everything. Emma was 9 years old and already understood that love without respect was hollow. By maintaining this boundary, I'd given her that clarity. I wasn't going to back down. November passed in a blur of finishing the park project and preparing for the awards ceremony. Emma and I fell into comfortable rhythms: movie nights, weekend breakfasts, evening walks where she'd tell me about school. We were building something new. Just the two of us. When the invitation to the December ceremony arrived with a +1 option, Emma insisted we both needed new outfits for our fancy night out. I didn't tell her I was a finalist. I wanted to surprise her if I won. I wasn't expecting my family to be there, but I should have known they'd find a way. The Community Builder Awards ceremony arrived on a cold December evening. Emma wore a navy velvet dress she'd picked out herself, insisting on doing her own hair in an elaborate braid she'd learned from YouTube. When we entered the hotel ballroom, she squeezed my hand. There are so many people. Dad, you know a lot of them. We've worked with half the businesses here. We found our assigned table near the front. The room gleamed with white linens, winter centerpieces, and a stage dominated by a massive screen. Emma's eyes went wide, taking it all in. Dinner service began, followed by the awards presentation. Categories passed one by one: small business innovation, community partnership, youth program excellence. Each winner received their moment. A plaque. Applause. Then Carol took the microphone. Our next category recognizes someone whose work genuinely improves quality of life in our community. The Community Builder Award goes to someone who doesn't just complete projects, but transforms spaces and creates opportunities. She paused, looking at her notes. This year's winner is Marcus Chin of Greenscape Designs. Emma grabbed my arm. Dad, that's you. My legs felt unsteady walking to the stage. Carol handed me a crystal award that caught the chandelier light. I looked out at the crowd: clients I'd worked with, business owners I respected, city officials. And then, standing near the back doors, I saw them. My mother, father, and Derek. They must have bought tickets or convinced someone to grant them entry. My mother's hand covered her mouth. Derek stood with arms crossed, expression unreadable. My father's face showed something I couldn't quite identify. I turned to the microphone, taking a breath to steady myself. Thank you. This recognition means more than you might think. I started Greenscape 12 years ago with a used truck and more hope than sense. For a long time, I played it safe: small jobs, low risk, comfortable mediocrity. I glanced at Emma, who watched with absolute focus. Then something happened that changed my perspective. My daughter taught me that the people who matter deserve more than leftovers and compromises. They deserve intention. They deserve to be prioritized, not squeezed into whatever's convenient for everyone else. The room had gone completely silent. So, I stopped playing small. I started taking risks, bidding on projects that scared me, investing in equipment I couldn't quite afford yet. This award isn't really about me. It's about what happens when you decide the people you love deserve the absolute best you can offer. When you stop accepting less than what they're worth. I held up the Crystal Award. Thank you for recognizing that work matters. Thank you for seeing it. The applause was sustained and genuine. Walking back to our table, Emma threw her arms around me. That was perfect. Dad? After the ceremony ended and people began mingling over coffee and dessert, I saw my parents approaching. My father reached us first. Marcus, he said carefully. That was quite a speech. Thank you. I kept my tone neutral. Not warm, but not hostile. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed. We're so proud of you. The words hung between us. I waited for more. But that seemed to be the complete statement. Are you? I asked quietly. Because pride is easy from a distance. Respect is harder. It requires actually listening when someone tells you they've been hurt. Derek shifted his weight uncomfortably. Look. We messed up. We get it. Can we just move past this now? Move past it how? What's actually changed? The three of them exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for the question. We want to be in your lives again. My mother said. In Emma's life. We miss you both terribly. Emma had been pressed against my side silently. Now she spoke up. Her voice steady. You missed my birthday too. You were there. But you missed it. My mother flinched visibly. Sweetheart. We were trying to include everyone. You included everyone except me. Emma interrupted. My name wasn't on the cake. The age was wrong. You took my special day and made it about Tyler. She paused. Dad says family is supposed to make you feel important, not invisible. You made me feel invisible. The silence stretched uncomfortably. My father cleared his throat, roughly. Emma. We never meant to. It doesn't matter what you meant. I said, keeping my voice level. It matters what you did. And what you did was dismiss something that mattered deeply to her. Then tell me I was overreacting when I said it wasn't okay. We were hurt too. Derek said defensively. You completely cut us off without warning. I set a boundary after months of being dismissed. There's a significant difference. I looked at each of them. Here's what needs to happen before we can even consider moving forward. I need you to acknowledge specifically what you did wrong. Not vague statements like mistakes were made. I need you to say it clearly. My mother's lips trembled. We shouldn't have combined the parties without asking you first. And she took a shaky breath. And we shouldn't have dismissed your feelings when you tried to tell us how hurtful it was. We made you feel like you were being dramatic when you were just being a good father. I looked at my father. He stared at the floor for a long moment before speaking. I called Emma that kid when I thought you couldn't hear me. Like she was a burden instead of my granddaughter. That was cruel and wrong. The admission clearly cost him something. Derek was last. I made jokes about saving you money and acted like you should be grateful we crashed Emma's party. I didn't think about how that would feel from your perspective. I'm sorry. The apologies weren't eloquent or comfortable. But they were specific. They were real. They were something. Okay. I said slowly. That's a beginning. But words are the easy part. What matters now is whether things actually change through your actions. My mother nodded, wiping her eyes. What do we need to do? Respect boundaries when I set them. Show up consistently. Not just when it's convenient. Prioritize Emma's feelings. Not just family harmony. Prove through behavior. Not promises. That you've learned something. We can do that. My father said gruffly. Then we'll see. But understand Emma and I are fine on our own. We've built a good life. You're not necessary to our happiness. You're invited to add to it. But only if you add something positive. They nodded. All three of them looking smaller somehow. As they walked away, Emma leaned against me. Do you think they really get it now? Maybe. We'll find out by watching what they do, not what they say. She considered this. That seems fair. We stayed another hour, talking with other attendees, accepting congratulations. When we finally left, Emma carried my award carefully to the car. This was a good night. Dad. Yeah. Sweetheart. It really was. And for the first time in months, I felt like maybe there was a path forward that didn't require us to keep burning bridges, as long as they met us where we were, not where they wanted us to be. Over the next few months, change came slowly and uncertainly, like watching ice thaw in early spring. My parents didn't disappear back into their old patterns, but they didn't transform overnight either. My mother started calling before visiting instead of showing up unannounced. Small thing, but significant. My father asked which weekends worked for us rather than announcing family gatherings and expecting attendance. Derek sent actual questions instead of assumptions. Would Emma want to meet Tyler at the park Saturday? No pressure either way. I talked to Emma first. Always. Your cousin wants to hang out. What do you think? She considered it seriously. Maybe. But somewhere neutral. Not at Grandma's house yet. We met at Riverside Park, the one my company had renovated. Derek brought Tyler, and the two kids gravitated toward the playground while Derek and I sat on a bench 20 feet away, maintaining careful distance. Thanks for agreeing to this, Derek said, watching the kids. I didn't agree to anything. Emma decided she wanted to see Tyler. That's different. He nodded slowly. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past months about how much I relied on you to organize everything, pay for everything, make everything happen. I just showed up and took it for granted. Yeah, you did. He winced but didn't argue. Mom and Dad did too. We all did. You made it look effortless. So we assumed it was. It wasn't effortless. It was expensive and exhausting, and I did it because I loved you all and wanted us to be close. I paused. Then when I needed you to show up for Emma in the smallest way, just let her have her own birthday, you couldn't do it. I know. His voice went quiet. I'm trying to do better now. Not because you demanded it, but because I realized how badly I screwed up. The exchange wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. That felt like real progress. My business continued expanding beyond what I'd imagined possible. The park renovation had generated attention, and now I was fielding inquiries from neighboring towns. I hired a project manager named Sarah Sharp. Organized. Someone who could handle day-to-day operations so I wasn't working every weekend. Emma noticed immediately. You're home more now, she said one Saturday morning as we made pancakes together. I am. I realized something important. I flipped a pancake. Building a successful business doesn't mean anything if I'm not around to enjoy life with you. So I'm building it smarter now. Not just bigger. She grinned. Batter on her nose. Does that mean we can get a dog? I laughed. You're relentless. We'll talk about it. But I was actually considering it. Emma was thriving in ways that went beyond just being happy. She joined the school art club and made close friends. Her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, sent me an email. Emma seems more confident lately, more willing to share her ideas in class. Whatever you're doing at home is working. When I asked Emma about it, she shrugged. I just don't worry as much anymore about saying the wrong thing or being too much. That observation gutted me. She'd been walking on eggshells for years, trying to be small enough not to cause problems. Now, with that pressure removed, she was finally becoming herself. In April, nearly a year after the disastrous birthday, my mother asked if she could take Emma somewhere, just the two of them. Emma looked uncertain when I mentioned it. What do you think? Sweetheart, it's completely your choice. She thought for a long moment. Can we start small? Maybe just lunch. Not a whole day. I texted my mother the compromise. Her response came immediately. That would be wonderful. Thank you for trusting me. They went to Emma's favorite diner and apparently talked for 2 hours. When my mother dropped Emma off afterward, she hugged her goodbye, then said to me quietly, Thank you for this chance. I'm not giving you a chance. Emma is. She's the one who decides. My mother nodded, eyes shining. She told me about her art projects and her friends and how you're teaching her about running a business. She paused. She's incredibly proud of you. Marcus, you've done an amazing job with her. The compliment caught me off guard. I'm just trying to be a good father. No, she said firmly. You're doing more than that. You held us accountable when we were wrong. Even though it was hard, that took real courage. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that. It wasn't a complete healing. We weren't back to weekly dinners and constant contact, but it was something genuine, built on actual foundation instead of obligation and guilt. That summer, as Emma's 10th birthday approached, she came to me with a request that surprised me. Dad, can we have a party this year? Like a real one, with my whole class. My chest tightened reflexively. Of course. What kind of party do you want? I want a pool party with those giant inflatable slides. She hesitated, twisting her hands together. And maybe, I think I want to invite Grandma and Grandpa too, but only if they understand it's my party. Just mine. I pulled her into a hug. Throat tight. We can absolutely do that. And I'll make sure everyone understands the rules this time. I rented the community pool facility and sent invitations 3 weeks in advance. When I called my parents to invite them, I was direct and clear. This is Emma's day. Her name, her age, her celebration. If anyone can't respect that completely, they shouldn't come. We understand. My father said, voice gruff but sincere. We'll be there to celebrate Emma. Nothing else. The party was everything Emma wanted. 20 kids splashing and shrieking in the pool. Pizza and fruit platters. A cake with happy 10th birthday. Emma written in purple, frosting her favorite color. She blew out her candles surrounded by friends singing enthusiastically off-key. Her face radiant with genuine joy. My parents arrived halfway through. They brought a wrapped present, wished Emma happy birthday, then sat quietly on the sidelines. They didn't try to redirect attention or take over. They didn't make suggestions or criticisms. They simply showed up as guests, exactly what I'd asked for. After the last guest left and we were cleaning up, Emma helped me stuff paper plates into trash bags. Still in her swimsuit with a towel wrapped around her shoulders. That was the best birthday ever. She said, I'm glad. Sweetheart. And I meant it completely. My parents approached as we finished. Marcus, can we talk briefly? My mother asked. Emma looked at me, and I nodded. Go grab your stuff from the locker room. I'll meet you at the car. Once she was out of earshot, my father spoke first. We wanted to thank you for including us. We know we didn't earn it. You're right. Emma wanted you here. This was her choice, not mine. My mother stepped closer. We've been talking, your father and I, about everything that happened, about the patterns you pointed out. She took a breath. You were right. We took you for granted. We treated Emma like she was secondary to everyone else's convenience. We made excuses instead of taking responsibility. It took us too long to really understand what we'd done. My father added, not just the party, but years of small moments where we didn't show up properly, where we chose convenience over connection. I waited, evaluating their words against their recent behavior. What's different now? I asked. My mother pulled out her phone, showed me her calendar. It was color-coded with specific dates marked. These are days I've set aside exclusively for Emma. Not family gatherings where she gets lost in the crowd, but individual time where she's the focus. I'm asking permission to be consistent, not just occasionally present. My father added, Derek and I had a long conversation about how we treated you like the family coordinator instead of someone with his own needs. How we expected you to always accommodate us but never return that consideration. That ends now. I studied them both. They looked older than I remembered, worn down by the past year. Here's what you need to understand. Emma and I built a good life this past year. A stable, The happy life without the constant pressure of managing everyone else's expectations. If you want back in, you're joining what we've already created. You don't get to reshape it to fit old patterns. We understand, my mother said. We're grateful just to be considered. Derek had been standing back, but now came forward. I owe you an apology too. Marcus, I've been in therapy the past few months, working through some issues about competition and resentment. Turns out I was jealous of your success while simultaneously depending on your generosity. That wasn't fair or healthy. The admission surprised me. That's good. Derek. Really? Tyler asks about Emma constantly. I've been honest with him in age-appropriate terms that we hurt your feelings and needed to make things right first. I want him to learn that relationships require work and accountability. These weren't empty promises or vague commitments. They were specific, backed by months of changed behavior I'd already witnessed. Okay, I said finally. We can try. Slowly. Emma sets the pace. And if at any point this becomes harmful for her, we step back again immediately. No arguments. No guilt trips. Agreed, they said together. Emma reappeared with her bag. Looking between us cautiously. Is everything okay? Yeah. Baby. Everything's good. I took her bag. Grandma wants to know if you'd like to go to the Science Museum with her next weekend. Just you two. Her face lit up. The one with the new butterfly exhibit, my mother smiled. Genuine warmth in her expression. That's the one. Emma looked at me for confirmation. I nodded. Only if you want to. Okay. But can we get lunch after? Museums always make me hungry. Absolutely, my mother said, voice thick with emotion. As we walked to the car, Emma slipped her hand into mine. Dad, do you think things will really be different now? I think they're genuinely trying. Whether they succeed long-term depends on whether they keep showing up the right way consistently. We'll find out by watching. Not just hoping. And if they don't, I squeezed her hand. Then we keep living our life exactly like we have been. Happy and whole. Just the two of us. She nodded. Satisfied. That seems fair. And it was fair because that was the real lesson. We didn't need them to be complete. We were already complete. Anything they added now was supplementary, and only welcome if it enriched rather than diminished what we'd built. 6 months after Emma's 10th birthday party, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly financials. Greenscape Designs had doubled its revenue from the previous year. We'd completed the park renovation, a hospital landscaping project, and 3 commercial properties. Sarah, my project manager, had proven invaluable. The business now ran smoothly even when I wasn't directly overseeing every detail. More importantly, I was home for dinner every night. Emma and I had established routines that mattered more than any contract. Tuesday movie nights, Saturday morning farmers market trips, Sunday evening meal prep together where she'd tell me everything about her week while we chopped vegetables. My family's reintegration had been gradual and carefully monitored. My mother had kept every single calendar commitment with Emma, 12 visits over 6 months, each one honoring the boundaries we'd set. My father had stopped making dismissive comments and actually listened when I talked, asking follow-up questions instead of waiting for his turn to speak. Derek had become surprisingly reliable, showing up when he said he would, and respecting no without argument or guilt trips. He'd continued therapy and occasionally shared insights he was learning about family dynamics and healthy communication. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward moments when old patterns surfaced, my mother suggesting we combine Easter with another family event before catching herself and apologizing. My father starting to make a joke about me being too sensitive, then stopping mid-sentence and changing course. But the critical difference was they caught themselves now. They apologized genuinely. They adjusted their behavior without me having to demand it. One Saturday afternoon in October, my mother took Emma to the butterfly exhibit as promised. When they returned, Emma burst through the door glowing with excitement. Dad, we saw a blue morpho butterfly, and Grandma bought me a book about lepidopterology, that's the study of butterflies and moths. She said, maybe you could help me start a garden that attracts butterflies in our backyard. My mother stood in the doorway, smiling, but tentative. Only if you have time and space for it. No pressure. That sounds like a great project. I said, we can plan it together. After Emma ran upstairs to put away her new book. My mother lingered. Thank you for trusting me with her. These past months. Getting to spend real time with Emma individually. It's been. Her voice cracked. It's been a gift I didn't deserve, but I'm grateful for every moment. You're earning it. I said simply. That's the difference now. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know I can never undo what we did. How we made her feel. But I hope over time I can show you both that I've learned something. You're already showing us. Just keep doing that. That winter, Emma started a small business selling handmade bookmarks at the local farmer's market. She'd gotten the idea from watching me build Greenscape, asking questions about pricing and profit margins and customer service. I helped her set up a simple booth and taught her basic accounting. Every Saturday, she'd arrange her inventory carefully, greet customers with confidence, and make change accurately. She was a natural entrepreneur, creative, personable, and meticulous about quality. I made $43 today, she announced one afternoon, carefully counting bills. That's 7 more than last week. That's excellent. What are you going to do with the profit? She thought for a moment. Half goes in savings for college like you taught me. Half I can spend on art supplies for making more bookmarks. That's reinvesting in the business. Right. Exactly right. I felt pride watching her apply concepts I'd shared casually over dinner conversations. One evening in early spring, as we sat on the back porch watching fireflies emerge at dusk, Emma said something that caught me off guard. Dad, I'm glad you didn't let them treat us badly. I looked at her. This remarkable almost 11-year-old who'd weathered so much. Me too. Sweetheart. Some kids at school. Their parents just accept whatever their grandparents do. Even when it's really mean. They say family has to forgive everything no matter what. She picked at a thread on her sleeve. But you taught me that's not true. That love means standing up for people. Not just accepting hurt because someone's related to you. You're absolutely right. Real love requires respect and boundaries. Anyone who tells you otherwise is confusing love with obligation. I know, she said simply. And I could tell she truly did know, not intellectually, but deeply, in a way that would shape how she navigated relationships for the rest of her life. That was perhaps my greatest accomplishment as a father, not the successful business or the award or even reconciling with my family on healthier terms. It was giving Emma the framework to understand her own worth was never negotiable. That people who loved her had to prove it through consistent actions, not just words or DNA. 2 weeks later, my father called with an unexpected request. Marcus, I'd like to take you and Emma to dinner. Just the 3 of us. There's something I want to say. We met at a quiet Italian restaurant. After we'd ordered, my father cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable but determined. Emma, I owe you an apology I should have given a long time ago. He looked directly at her. What we did at your 9th birthday party was wrong. We took something that should have been special and made it about everyone else. We made you feel like you didn't matter. And that was cruel. Emma listened quietly, her face serious. I've spent a lot of time this past year thinking about the kind of grandfather I want to be versus the kind I've actually been. I want to be someone you can count on. Someone who makes you feel valued, not invisible. He paused. I'm asking if you'll give me the chance to do better. I know I can't change what happened, but I'd like to try moving forward differently. Emma looked at me, and I gave her a small nod. This was her decision. Okay, Grandpa, she said. But if you mess up again, we're going to take another break. That's fair, right? He smiled, eyes glistening. That's more than fair. Sweetheart. Thank you. Later, driving home under streetlights, Emma said, that was hard for Grandpa. Wasn't it apologizing like that? Very hard. Admitting you were wrong is difficult, especially to someone younger. It takes real courage. Do you think he means it? I think he's trying to mean it. We'll know over time by watching what he does, not just what he says. She nodded, absorbing this wisdom. You say that a lot about watching what people do instead of just listening to what they promise. Because it's the most important lesson I can teach you. Actions reveal character. Promises are easy. Follow-through is what matters. The real test came that summer when Derek's family hit financial trouble. His partner's mother got sick. Medical bills piled up, and they were struggling. My mother called asking if I'd be willing to help organize a family fundraiser. My first instinct was suspicion. Was this another situation where I'd be expected to carry the load while others took credit? But my mother had anticipated that. I'm not asking you to plan it or fund it, she said carefully. Derek's already spoken with the community center about hosting. Several relatives have volunteered to cook. We just wanted to check if you'd be comfortable with us reaching out to your business contacts for donation requests. Only if you're willing. There's no obligation and no hard feelings if you say no. The fact that she'd asked first, that she'd clarified expectations, that she'd explicitly said no obligation, that was the change I'd been waiting for. I'll reach out to a few businesses, I said, and I'll match whatever we raise. Up to $1,000. Marcus, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to because Derek's my brother and I want to help. That's different from being taken advantage of. The fundraiser raised $3,000. My matching contribution brought it to $4,000. Derek called me afterward, voice thick with emotion. Thank you. Not just for the money, but for showing up when you didn't have to. After everything that happened, you could have said no and no one would have blamed you. Family helps, family, I said, but on terms that respect everyone involved. That's what I've been trying to teach all of you. I get it now, he said quietly. I really do. Emma's 11th birthday approached. And this time, she planned it herself, a small gathering with her 5 closest friends. An escape room adventure, followed by pizza. No elaborate production. No massive guest list. Just exactly what she wanted. Do you want to invite Grandma and Grandpa? I asked. While we addressed invitations, she thought about it. Maybe they can come to the pizza part after the escape room. I want the escape room to just be my friends. But I don't mind them being at the restaurant. That's perfect. I'll let them know. They showed up at the restaurant right on time. Brought a thoughtful gift Emma had actually mentioned wanting, and left after an hour without overstaying. They were learning to be guests in her life rather than directors. And it showed. That night, tucking Emma into bed, she said, "This was my favorite birthday yet. Better than the pool party last year. Different better. Last year was big and fun. This year felt more like me." She paused. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. You're figuring out who you are and what matters to you. That's exactly what being 11 is about. She smiled sleepily. I'm glad we didn't let them ruin birthdays forever. I'm glad they learned how to do better. Me too. Sweetheart. As I turned off her light and closed the door, I reflected on the journey we'd taken. The revenge I'd imagined at the beginning, the dramatic confrontation, the permanent cutoff. The making them pay, none of that had been as powerful as what actually happened. We'd built a life so undeniably good, they could see what they'd almost permanently lost. We'd made them earn their way back through consistent changed behavior. Not just apologies. We'd taught Emma that her worth was never negotiable, and that people who loved her had to prove it through actions over time. That was the real victory. Not punishing them, but refusing to shrink ourselves to accommodate their dysfunction. We'd grown strong in the space their absence created, and we'd grown wise about who deserved access to that strength. They were back in our lives now, but on fundamentally different terms. Terms that respected Emma's dignity, honored my boundaries, and required ongoing effort rather than assumed forgiveness. And if they slipped back into old patterns, we'd simply step away again, knowing we'd already proven we could thrive without them. That certainty that we were complete on our own and their presence was privilege, not necessity. That was the foundation everything else was built on. Emma understood that now, and that understanding would shape how she navigated every relationship for the rest of her life. As I walked downstairs and looked at the photos on our wall, Emma at the park opening, Emma at her 10th birthday, Emma at her farmer's market booth. I realized something profound. I hadn't just protected my daughter. I'd taught her how to protect herself. And that lesson would last far longer than any party, any cake, any single moment ever could. Story 2. My fiancé left me for my brother 2 weeks before to our wedding. After I declined to be his best man, my parents formally disowned me, saying, "Be happy for him." They were wailing at my door months later because their ideal world had just been set on fire. Reddit. Hello. I never would have imagined that I would be the one publishing this. Yet here we are. The state of affairs in my household moved from chaotic to completely crazy. I honestly don't know whether I'm the crazy one or if they're as horrible as I believe. So I thought I'd share it here. My brother, my engagement, and certain decisions that completely blew everything apart were the first things that caused it. I suppose I should begin at the top. Mason is my name. Up until approximately a year ago, I believed that my life was finally coming together at the age of 33. Sasha and I had been together for 4 years. This little restaurant close to downtown is where we first met. You hit it off immediately. In all honesty, she was my first genuine opportunity to start a relationship. Together, we selected rings, decided on a date, and reserved this vineyard outside of the city. Although it wasn't very elaborate, it was ideal for us. That was my first idea. Anyhow, even choosing the flowers for the tables was part of Sasha's ability to make everything seem like a celebration. She would transform it into this expansive vision. She had Pinterest boards, color schemes, binders, everything. That's not me. Simply put, I was glad she was content, and I assumed marriage would be like that. Until Chester returned, everything seemed to be proceeding as planned. 2 years behind me, but always in front of everyone else, is my younger brother. He had just completed an MBA program in London. My folks were also unable to stop talking about him. Chester that. Chester this. Chester launching his own advisory business. Chester's international contacts. I'm simply the other son. However, and I have a reliable job. They always presented me that way. Just the other one. Not my title. Not anything I'd accomplished. I was first relieved that Chester and Sasha got along. I take it that you want your fiancé to like your family. They would discuss topics I honestly found uninteresting, like markets and global business. Then, I became aware of how often Chester's name began to appear in discussions. Chester believes that we need to attempt this investment. Otherwise, he claims that the market will collapse. Background noise at first. Then every other phrase. Since I trusted them both, I chose to disregard it. My work phone buzzes 2 weeks before to the wedding. Sasha is here. Her voice sounds strange. Too happy. Like if she had practiced it. "Can you meet me at the diner?" she asks, referring to the diner where we first met. Before I arrived, I was feeling nauseous. When I entered, she was seated at the table already. The very one where our first date took place. She was unable to even look at me this time. However, she was holding the ring box. She replied, "I can't marry you, Mason." Without hesitation. No hesitancy. No build-up. At first, I chuckled, since you don't even say anything. Perhaps it was chilly feet. I reasoned. I inquired as to if it was related to a pointless argument we had had about the guest list. She gave a headshake. That isn't it. Chester is the object of my adoration. The room felt as if the air had been drawn out. I didn't shout. I didn't turn things around. The person I thought I knew showed me a side of herself I had never seen. And I simply sat there looking at her. She made an effort to seem depressed. But it came across more as annoyance that I wasn't making her life easier. Then, as if it were a farewell present, she slid the ring box across the table in my direction. As she got up to go, she remarked, "I think you should have this back." She didn't even hold off till I answered. Just threw it aside as if it didn't exist and left. My mother invites me over 2 hours later. She is aware already. I'm not shocked. She suggests that Sasha and Chester would be a better fit, so perhaps this is for the best. As if they had been waiting for this. Dad adds that Chester is more her style. They didn't even bat an eye when I asked them if they really approved of my brother robbing my fiancée 2 weeks before to my wedding. Chester and Sasha are a match made in heaven. Mom replied. People fall in love. Mason. Better now than after the wedding. Dad added. You'll find someone else. Chester then entered, wearing the graduation watch I had given him. And he seemed guilty, but not so guilty as to stop. He said, Look, I know this is awkward, but we didn't mean for it to happen. We tried to fight it. We haven't even done anything physical yet. How noble of them. Right. Then came the icing on the cake. Sasha adores the vineyard. So Chester cleared his throat and asked if they might use my reservation. Additionally, because everything had already been paid for. It made financial sense. In fact, my folks agreed as if it made sense. So, let me clarify this. My fiancé is taken by my brother. My parents encourage him. They now want me to turn over my nuptials as well. That's when I realized. To them, it made no difference how I felt. My pleasure would never be as important as Chester's. Always. Doors weren't slammed by me. I refrained from screaming. I just got up and left. Silence may sometimes speak louder than words. My parents gave me another call a few days later. But this time they didn't want to know how I was doing. The good news was something they wanted to spread. Officially, Chester and Sasha were engaged. My mother sounded ecstatic, as if she had been waiting her whole life for this news. Dad said that their meeting was a result of destiny. I was sitting there thinking, fate, no. This wasn't fate. This was betrayal, dressed up as romance. That evening, I was scrolling through social media when I came across it. In photos, Sasha is seen standing next to Chester and flaunting her new ring, with my parents smiling on each side. Family members are commenting on how well they formed a pair. Nothing concerning me. Not even a check-in message. It struck me that night. I was no longer a member of their family. Perhaps I had never been. For a few weeks after the major news of Sasha and Chester's engagement, I stayed to myself. Additionally, I ignored my parents' calls, failed to respond to Chester's messages. To be honest, I had no idea what I could say to them without going crazy. At first, friends checked in. But how can you possibly describe this without making it seem fabricated? Yes. My fiancé was taken by my younger brother 2 weeks before to our wedding. And my parents are already organizing their engagement celebration. People are unsure about how to handle it. They just nod and say, Man, that sucks. Then they go on to something else. One Saturday morning, my parents unexpectedly arrived at my house. They were there when I opened the door, grinning as if nothing had happened. Mom began, adjusting her skirt as if she hadn't just walked into my house. Mason, we must discuss Chester's wedding. I remained still for a moment. Marriage. It has been around 2 weeks since they got engaged. Dad gave a shrug. It's right when it's right. Things are proceeding swiftly. And they have decided on a date. I couldn't help but chuckle. You're here to help me organize their wedding 2 weeks after my fiancé left me for my brother. You hear yourself, don't you? We're here because Chester wants you to be his best man. I honestly believed he was kidding. But I laughed even harder this time. His what best man, Mom repeated as if it were normal. And it would mean so lot to him and to us. Dad's voice became strong. Enough with the victim routine. I stared at them, waiting for the hidden camera crew to jump out. You really think I'd stand up there beside him while he marries the woman I was supposed to marry 2 weeks ago? Dad stepped forward, lowering his voice, as if he were imparting fatherly wisdom. This is your chance to prove that you're the bigger person. To rise above all this pettiness and be there for your brother. Not my feelings. Not my pain. Just their obsession with appearances. They didn't care that I was humiliated. They cared that other people might notice. You know what's embarrassing? I snapped. Imagine how it will look if Chester's own brother isn't standing next to him. People will talk. Do you want that kind of embarrassment hanging over the family? Mom's eyes narrowed. We only suspected Chester liked her. And we didn't want to cause drama where none might exist. The fact that you both knew Chester had feelings for Sasha and chose not to warn me. The fact that you clapped when they announced their engagement rather than asking if I was okay. Dad's voice sharpened. Mason. They tried to do the right thing. They resisted their emotions. You let me walk blind into a wedding when Sasha and Chester were halfway there. That's not protecting me. That's setting me up. I chuckled bitterly. The room fell silent for a moment. And then Dad cleared his throat. Resetting. No matter how you feel. Mason. The wedding is happening. Chester is happy. Sasha is happy. They didn't even sleep together until after she broke up with you. Oh. Wow. How noble. I shot back. They waited a whole day to jump into bed. I guess I should be sending them a thank you card. You can call it fate. You can call it family. But I call it betrayal. And we expect you to be there as best man. I stood up and looked down at them both. Let me be clear, I will not stand at an altar beside my brother while he marries my ex-fiancée. I will not smile for photos. Mom responded. You're overreacting. He's your brother. This is your chance to prove you're loyal to the family. And I want no part of it. I added bluntly. This is my chance to prove I still have a shred of self-respect. It's obvious that you've all forgotten about this. After a few weeks, the wedding actually took place. And I wasn't there. They left after a few more mutterings about me being selfish and more disappointed looks. I closed the door behind them and stood there for a while. My hands shaking, but my heart thumping with this strange mixture of relief and rage. They even held the ceremony at the vineyard I had reserved. The location I had spent months planning around. Of course. I didn't send a card, a gift, or anything else. I learned about it from family members' social media posts and group photos of everyone smiling as if this was the happily ever after they had all been waiting for. As I sat in my flat, going through the several pictures my parents had posted of Chester and Sasha in front of the arch I had selected, our son, Chester, finally finding happiness. I saw something else, not a single reference to me. I figured maybe now they would finally leave me alone. But I should have known better. My family doesn't quit. Not because they care, but because they can't stand losing control. Maybe this was the best thing that could have happened because I now knew exactly where I stood. I thought that was the end of it. They had their ideal wedding, their glistening Facebook pictures, and their true love conquers all garbage. I ignored it all at first, including my dad's clipped messages about how it's childish to isolate oneself and my mom's voicemails about Thanksgiving asking me to put the past behind me and join the family table. One day, I came home from work to find my front door unlocked. The only way they could have gotten in was with the spare key I'd given my parents for emergencies. So I suppose in their minds, me not falling in line counted as one. At first, I thought maybe I'd been careless. But when I stepped inside, there they were. Mom, Dad, and Chester, sitting in my living room like they owned the place. My stomach dropped. Why in the world are you here? We need to speak. I replied, dropping my bag. Dad lay back on the sofa totally composed. No. I fired back right away. You need to go out. Mason. Chester began, getting to his feet with his hands up like I was some kind of untamed beast. Give us 5 minutes. Okay, leave. I said. Mom said. This has lasted long enough. You're 33 years old. Mason. And you're acting like a spoiled child. You're ruining our reputation. I laughed coldly. But Chester's voice rose. That's what you call someone who lost his fiancée to his brother and got told to smile about it. Her voice was sharp, as if she had been the one who had been wronged. You mean marrying her in the venue I reserved? Yeah. That's real. All right. Real pathetic. Enough. Dad's voice thundered through the room, and he stood pointing at me like I was 12 again. I'm tired of walking around feeling guilty for being happy. For once in my life, I found something real. and all you do is throw it in my face. Chester made a decision, and it's time you let it go. Sasha is now a member of our family. Chester is content, and we're all pleased. The only person pouting is you, and that's a decision you're making. This bitterness and anger are ruining everything. All I could think as I stood there looking at the three of them, the ones who were meant to love me and support me, was, they'll never see it. You're right, I whispered softly, and they all seemed shocked, as if I had just given in. You're right, I added again. I am making a decision. I'm not going to act like this is okay. And if you can't move on, then maybe you don't belong in this family anymore. I stared him down. And what if I don't? What if I don't move on? What then? His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing as if he were about to give me a sentence. I'm choosing not to waste another second trying to earn approval from parents who only see me as the backup son. Dad's face hardened. He turned away after we held eyes for a long while, neither of us blinking. And I walked towards the door and pushed it open, holding it wide. Go ahead. Do it. Make it official, because I'm done pretending I still have a family here. For the first time in months, I felt as though I had taken something back. Of course, I was unaware of how far they'd actually go at the time. And for a while, I thought maybe I'd finally scared them off. They filed out, still making little jabs about me being selfish and tearing the family apart. I told them to leave the spare key. I assumed they would back down after the key in the door stunt. Things were quiet for weeks. Too quiet. But then little things started to happen that bothered me. My boss, who had always been fair to me, suddenly seemed distant and stopped, including me, in meetings that I usually ran. One person even asked me if I was doing all right in that slow or careful tone you'd use with someone straight out of a mental institution. I dismissed it at first, thinking maybe I was crazy. But then my manager took me into his office. I got along well with my coworkers, but they seemed weird, as if they knew something I didn't. He leaned back in his chair, closed the door, and gave me a look that suggested he was going to break bad news to me. Your father called me, he said carefully. Mason. My stomach fell, as it seemed that Dad had contacted him through old contacts, saying he was concerned about me. He told my boss that I had been unstable since the breakup and that I might not be able to handle stress at work. I sat there in shock, clutching the chair's armrest so tightly that my knuckles ached. My boss must have noticed my expression, because he immediately added, I don't believe a word of it. He had framed it as concern, but it was really a hit job, a way to paint me as untrustworthy, so I'd come crawling back to the family for support. I just thought you should know. That night, I called Dad. He didn't even deny it, so I was worried. Hey. No. Hello. No pleasantries. Just what the hell do you think you're doing, calling my job HR? Even logged it as an inappropriate third-party complaint, which honestly just made you look better on paper. I thought maybe your employer should know, in case what I yelled. In case I humiliated you. In case I didn't fit in. You attempted to ruin my career because I refused to stand next to Chester at his wedding. You've been excluding us and isolating yourself. I was trying to protect you. No. I shot back. You were trying to control me. And when you couldn't do it with guilt, you tried to do it with sabotage. Silence. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd actually gotten through to him. Then, in that cool, condescending tone that always made my teeth twitch, he said, Don't be dramatic. His voice was colder than I've ever heard it. If you won't move on from this, Mason, maybe you don't belong in this family anymore. And what if I don't? What if I don't move on? Then what? There was a pause. And then he said, Then we'll make it official. My hands were shaking so much that I could hardly put the phone down, and I hung up before he could say anything more. A week later, he arrived at my door. Mason, he said flatly, holding out the envelope. This is your choice. I took it without breaking eye contact. When I opened it, I saw him standing there in one of his fitted suits, holding an envelope and his expression was the same grim one he used to wear when he was about to ground me as a teenager. Except this time it wasn't about missing curfew. The document looked thick and official, with a single page of letterhead from a law firm, the kind his office used for contracts, but the message was straightforward: I was being cut off. All financial connections were broken, and any inheritance claims were annulled. His and my mother's signatures were at the bottom, and I read it twice before turning to face him. "You actually did it. You forced our hand," he said, as if it were my fault. "I forced your hand," I repeated slowly. "By being upset that my brother stole my fiancée. You forced our hand by choosing bitterness over family." I laughed sharply and without humor. I was officially removed from any trusts, accounts, or estate planning with zero authorization to use the family name in business. That one hit harder than I wanted to admit, but I didn't let it show. I folded the letter neatly, slid it back into the envelope, and handed it to him. "You mean by choosing self-respect?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't back down. "You chose pride over family. Chester has always been the better son anyway. We should have done this years ago." Chester wasn't there. Perhaps because he didn't have the stomach for it, or perhaps because they didn't trust him not to crack. But behind him, I could see Mom sitting in the passenger seat of their car, staring straight ahead, refusing to even look at me. "You know what? You're right. This is what I chose. Thank you for making it easy." 3 weeks after they served me the papers, I thought maybe it was finally over. They'd cut me off. I'd cut them out. And that was that. Life was finally quiet. Dad stood there for another second as if he was waiting for me to beg. But I didn't. He then turned and walked back to the car. I closed the door, slid the deadbolt, and leaned against it, letting out a slow breath. In retrospect, it was too quiet. Then, one morning at around 6 o'clock, I woke up to a pounding so loud that it rattled the frame of my front door. No knocking. No ringing of the bell. Just fists slamming continuously as if they wanted to beat the hinges off. I sat up, confused, and checked my phone, which is when my stomach flipped. I heard my name reverberating through the wood like they were working a demon, and I could even hear Mom crying in between yells. Rather than hurrying to answer, I got up, put on sweatpants, and padded into the kitchen. There were 147 missed calls, voicemails, and more than 150 texts, all from Mom, Dad, and Chester. My neighbor across the street was standing on her porch in a bathrobe, arms crossed, watching the circus on my doorstep. Her expression said it all. "Your family has lost it." I set up the coffee maker and let it hiss and gurgle while they continued to scream. If they wanted my attention, they could wait until I had caffeine. They almost fell in when I opened the door. Mom's mascara was streaked down her cheeks. Her hair stuck to her wet face. And Dad looked devastated, his shirt wrinkled, his tie hanging loose, his eyes bloodshot as if he hadn't slept. Chester looked worse than both of them, pale, sweaty, his jaw twitching, his hair sticking out as if he'd been yanking at it. Mom grabbed my arm with both hands in desperation. "Mason, please just tell us what you did. Tell who what I asked." Deadpan. "Thank God," Dad muttered, shouldering past me. "We need to talk." I leaned against the counter, coffee mug in hand. "Do we? The last time we spoke, you made it official that we were no longer family. The reporters, someone gave them everything." I raised an eyebrow. "Reporters, the Jackson case," Dad said in his voice. "They're running an expose. They know about the cover-up, the missing evidence, the intimidation. They're saying I built my career on corruption." Chester yelled, pacing the living room like a cornered animal. I read a few lines and then laughed. "You seriously think I leaked this? I didn't even know there was a story until 30 seconds ago. You're the only one who had access." His hands trembled as he took a folded print out of the exposed draft from his jacket and slapped it onto the coffee table. The story was scheduled to run in the morning, and the headline was already screaming about justice denied. Dad shot back. You knew details. You wanted revenge. I sneered. Mon sobbed more. Please. Mason. If you did this, stop it. Retract it. They'll destroy us. The firm. The family name. Everything. I stared at her. You disowned me 3 weeks ago. You legally cut me off. Why would I do anything to help the press when I can just sit here with my coffee and watch you crash on your own? It must have been you. Who else could have hacked Dad's office or gone through files? Or, sure, I replied, smiling. I broke into the law firm archives, cracked the safe, and leaked it to the Times. You don't get to call me family anymore. The room grew heavy. Chester froze mid-pace, his face pale, and he jabbed a finger at me. Totally plausible. Chester's voice broke in between work shifts. Shut up. His pacing halted. His eyes opened as if he had been shot, and he ran a nervous hand through his hair. Oh my God, he whispered. It's Sasha. Funny, I remarked. If you're doing a pretty good job of that on your own. What do you mean? Mom's head swung towards him. Chester's chest heaved. She wanted to know how the firm got so big. So I told her after we got married. I believed she would be impressed. Dad's face went pale. You told her what I told her about Jackson and how we managed to pull it off. I thought she wouldn't do anything, Chester said, raising his voice almost to a shout. Let me get this straight. You marry my fiancée. And now you're saying you also handed her the family's biggest skeleton in the closet. And I'm the one you accused. I thought she'd be proud of me. Proud of us. I never thought. Mom covered her mouth. Tears came again. Oh. Chester. I leaned against the counter, sipping my coffee. We'll see. We'll find out right now, Chester said. Shut up. His hands trembled as he pulled out his phone, jabbing at the screen, slapping it on speaker, and setting it down on the table. The three of them hovered over it like a live bomb. And after 4 rings, her voice came in, calm and controlled. Sasha's voice came through on the other end, steady and serene, as if she were drinking tea as the world burnt. Chester. What time is it there? I'm in meetings. I told you I'm in meetings all day. Chester's voice trembled as he bent over the phone. We need to speak immediately. Chester's voice nearly broke as he abruptly said, Don't play games. The papers. The story about my dad's firm. They have everything. Did you talk to them? There was a pause long enough to hear the buzzing of silence before Sasha's laugh, not the bubbly fake laugh she used to throw around at dinner, slid through the speaker. You don't understand. Do you? She said finally. Mom gasped, covering her mouth. Dad clenched his fists. Chester looked like his whole world was collapsing right there in my living room. What do you mean? This was never about you. Chester. Or Mason. He muttered. And Sasha's voice became icy. Chester staggered back as if she had smacked him, saying, You were just convenient. What? Sasha went on. You were my shortcut. Not my goal. The room froze, and even my breathing briefly halted. Shortcut, Chester scowled. What's the shortcut to? She said bluntly. To your father. To his firm. To my family's ruining situation. Dad came up and said loudly, What on earth are you discussing? Sasha made no hesitation. Jackson's case. The foundation of your empire. The one where you bullied witnesses, concealed evidence, and imprisoned an innocent guy in order to allow your client to go free. My father was that guy. The air in the room seemed to have been drawn out by someone. Her voice remained calm and surgical as she continued. For something he didn't do. My father was imprisoned in a cell for the remainder of his life. My mom was unable to cope with it. A year later, she had a heart attack from which she never fully recovered. While your family benefited financially from our devastation, I was left alone at the age of 16 and had to watch our family name decay. For the first time in my life, I looked at Dad. I saw a crack on his face. His eyes darted as if he had just been caught in the act of nudity. and his mouth fell slack. "You're telling lies," he whispered. "This is something you made up." "Am I?" Sasha fired back. "Because the reporters already have the records, the audio, and the witnesses. I unearthed everything you believed you had hidden. The world now knows." Mom collapsed on the sofa and started crying. Chester seemed to be about to vomit. Dad just stood there, shaky with a mixture of dread and anger. I was unable to resist. The irony was so scathing that it made me chuckle. Not because it was humorous. All of their deceit, all of their treachery, all of their arrogant speeches about family first. And they were heartbroken by their ideal golden girl. "Sasha." Chester gripped the phone tightly, as if it were his lifeline. "Please. Sasha. I was adored by you. I never loved you." "You said." Coldly. She interrupted. "I researched you. I studied you all." I grabbed Mason as he was the first opening. "Cute Meat's coffee shop. Please." Every morning. I knew precisely where he went. I was aware of his preferences and desires. I got in via him. "Chester. You were even better when you arrived. Desperate enough to reveal secrets. Foolish enough to fall for me. I needed the last piece. And you delivered it to me." Chester muttered. "You took advantage of me." "Yes." She stated plainly. "You also made it simple." He stumbled back and put his hands over his face. "God. Oh God." Father yelled into the telephone. "Are you aware of what you have done? You have damaged reputations and devastated lives." Sasha interrupted him. "No. That's what you did. When you put money above the truth. You ruined my father's life. When you abandoned my mother to mourn herself to death. You murdered her." I just pulled back the curtain. The ensuing hush was cruel. Chester's frantic breathing, Mom's crying, and Dad's teeth clenching, like he was about to blow up, were all audible. In me, I saw the empire fall apart while sipping my coffee. Sasha's tone softened, but it was definitive and unkind. "Savor the remnants of your heritage. I'll be observing." The line then stopped working. For a whole minute, nobody moved. Time seemed to have halted. Dad finally buried his face in his hands and collapsed into a chair. Mom murmured prayers while rocking back and forth on the sofa. Chester let out this broken moan and fell to the ground, his phone clattering next to him. Half scream, half sob. After placing my mug on the counter, I went to the door and flung it open. I answered quietly. "Well?" Dad sprang up and said, "Looks like you got your official ending." His eyes were blazing. I answered, "Good luck with that. But don't include me. Remember, I'm not a member of this family. This isn't over. We'll battle this. We'll repair it." Your words, not mine. Dad slammed the door behind him so hard the frame rattled. Mom avoided my eyes. Chester couldn't even look at me. And when the house fell silent again, I sat down with my coffee and gazed at the engagement ring that had sparked it all. Eventually, they filed out, stumbling into the daylight like ghosts. The best part was that I didn't have to do a thing. Sasha did all the dirty work. And she didn't even do it for me. She did it for herself. The expose hit the newsstands the very next morning, with a big bold headline on the front page. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like the broken one anymore. A well-known lawyer's career was built on wrongful conviction. They didn't mince words and told it all: how Dad's firm had concealed evidence, how witnesses were coerced, how the Jackson case was essentially a masterclass in corruption, how a former paralegal had flipped, and how every detail was supported by a time-stamped audio file that included names, dates, and receipts. In just 7 days, years of arrogant speeches about ethics and family reputation were gone. Reporters were encamped outside my parents' house by noon, and 3 of Dad's biggest clients announced they were severing their ties by evening, and the state bar suspended his law license pending investigation by the end of the week. Mom had been so preoccupied with image her entire life, and now her own face was on the news, looking like she'd aged 20 years overnight. Chester wasn't spared either. I didn't go anywhere near their house, but I didn't need to. Their neighbors whispered, coworkers turned away, and even their church friends stopped visiting. Word quickly spread that Sasha was the source of the leak, and their idyllic marriage fell apart in the blink of an eye. One day, they were sharing happy couple photos, and the next day Sasha was gone, taking half the bank account with her when she moved her belongings out while Chester was at work. A week or so later, my phone buzzed, and Chester's name appeared on the screen. I answered against my better judgment, saying, "Hello." At first, all I could hear was breathing, followed by Chester's broken voice. She took everything, and I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. "No," I said slowly, and she revealed everything. There was silence on his end, and I could almost hear him breaking down before the line went dead, and that was the last time we spoke. Dad, on the other hand, just withdrew. From what I hear, he hardly leaves the house. A man who used to strut through courtrooms like he owned them now hides from the mailman. Mom, on the other hand, started therapy. Or at least that's what one of her sisters told me. I suppose she's finally trying to face the decades of denial she wrapped herself in. I guess working extra hours to numb the pain paid off because I continued to advance in my career. Got promoted to senior project manager. And, ironically, bought a small house across town. Filled it with furniture I actually liked rather than items to impress guests, and painted it whatever colors I wanted. Then there was Jessica. We met via a mutual acquaintance. Went out for coffee. And for once, I didn't feel like I was having to prove myself. She wasn't ostentatious, wasn't trying to compare me to my brother, and she simply loved me. She never once mentioned my last name, laughed at my stupid jokes, and inquired about my job as if it were important. After a few months, she cuddled up on the sofa next to me and said, "Do you ever regret breaking ties with them? Do you long for a family?" After giving it a lot of consideration, I finally told her the truth. I missed the family I believed I had, but it never existed. I had a group of people who were bound by blood and control, and they never really saw me. They saw me as the spare tire, and Chester as their golden boy. And the moment I stopped playing along, they threw me out without blinking. It hurt, of course, but it was liberating. You see, Sasha believed she had destroyed me, and she probably still does. My true family now consists of Jessica, who makes me laugh till my stomach aches. However, what she really accomplished was to release me from the burden of their expectations, from the cycle of betrayal and gaslighting, and from the trap of continuously striving to be enough. That's family. The people who choose you, not the ones who take advantage of you. Every time I remember that engagement ring still sitting in its little velvet box, I no longer feel the old sting, but rather relief that I didn't marry into a life built on lies. It's my friend Tom from work, the guy who called me every day after the breakup to make sure I was still standing, and my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who brings me soup when I'm sick and doesn't ask for anything in return. My old life is gone. Dad's business is gone. Chester's marriage is gone. And good riddance are gone. I'm finally able to build something real. Something that is mine. And for the first time, perhaps forever, I'm not looking for their approval. I don't need it. I never did. I'm relieved that I avoided a bullet I never saw coming. When everything goes wrong, it's about who shows up. And mine is ultimately valuable.